How about brute supervenience? Is that not a form of physicalism? Well, Beeler and Coons consider an analogy between brute supervenience about Q properties, mental properties in particular, and G.E. Moore's thesis about good, with which I'm sure you are all familiar. Moore's theory seems indeed to be Moore's theory is that moral properties brutally supervene, right, on natural properties. Right? It's not a naturalism. Moral properties are not reducible to physical or natural properties, but they supervene on them. How do they what's the supervenience relation between the natural world and Moore's moral world? It just does. Now, G.E. Moore's moral theory does seem indeed to be a brute supervenience theory on which moral properties brutally supervene on natural properties. But no one in his right mind thinks of Moore's moral theory as naturalist or physicalist, right? It's universally considered to be a form of non-naturalism, non-physicalism. So it's hard to see what would justify calling a brute supervenience theory about mental properties a form of physicalism either. So if the supervenience patch on non-reductive physicalism fails, that leaves two candidates: reductive physicalism and eliminative physicalism. So finally, there's, I think, the common view right now in contemporary philosophy of mind is what we might call contingent physicalism. Contingent physicalism is the claim that mental properties are fixed by physical properties. The determination relation, however, is not supervenience. At least it's not metaphysical supervenience. Rather, the determination relation between mental and physical properties is a causal or a nomological one. It has to do with neuroscience. Either events in which physical properties are instantiated cause events in which mental properties are instantiated, or it is nomologically necessary that if a fact containing an instantiation of a physical property holds, then a fact containing an instantiation of a mental property holds. These are the sorts of sentences you get from a scientific study of mental activity. But contingent physicalism is not, I would submit, a solution to the mind-body problem. It is merely a schema for a matured neuroscience, which will provide as much understanding of the mental as science is capable of providing. After all, Descartes himself was a contingent physicalist. He was looking for the physical laws that connected the realm of res cogitans with the realm of extensio. As I said, if your physicalism doesn't exclude Descartes, then how much of a physicalist are you, really? To declare the mind-body problem is a metaphysical problem. To declare, and the problem of the relation between all non-physical properties and physical properties is a metaphysical problem. It is not a scientific problem. To declare that the mind-body problem really just arises from our ignorance of the physical operations of the brain is to presuppose the truth of physicalism, itself a metaphysical thesis, not a scientific one, from the start. And you can receive no support for that assumption from this argument. That went well.
Is that the end of the...
Yeah.
I know that we probably all have a lot of questions, so if you would like to start by raising your hand and having Pyne call on you. I would like it if you could maybe just, I was taking too many notes, could you back up and explain again how contingent physicalism doesn't deal away with the mind-body problem?
Contingent physicalism is to say that given the prevailing physical laws on Earth, in the actual world, mental properties in particular, nomologically or causally supervene. not logically supervene. You have to causally or nomologically supervene on physical properties. But that is a fact about the actual world. So what we have learned then is that mental properties are fixed by physical properties in the actual world. We have not learned that mental properties are physical properties, any more than the fact that, back to my is being square a physical property. Because of course being square has certain consequences, and certain squares are in fact the subjects of geometrical proofs. Are those physical squares? No. No, they're squares. They're the square itself, right? That is the subject of geometric proofs. And if you say, well, a property is physical if it is realized at any time or in any world by a physical object. That won't work because I have an insurance policy that is worth $10,000, and you can also buy a car that's worth $10,000. So simply because the physical object, the Mazda, has a value property, does not make that a physical property. You can run over somebody with the Mazda, but you can't run over anybody with the insurance policy. Quite the contrary.
So the problem with eliminative physicalism as opposed to reductive physicalism is that it's inconsistent?
Is it what?
The problem with eliminative physicalism was that it's inconsistent? Or was that it's inconsistent, like philosophers do tend to admit some Q properties?
No, I don't think eliminativism is inconsistent. The problem with eliminative physicalism is there's not enough content for it to conflict with anything. Because if you are going to be consistent in eliminative physicalism, and I mean without cheating and arm waving, which is what goes on, you're not left with enough to say. I mean, eliminative physicalism does not leave you with enough resources to state or to describe everything that is so. Like some of those pieces of stretched canvas in the Louvre represent, let's say, the crucifixion. Others represent the rape of the Sabines. Others represent the Mona Lisa, and so on. We can't say that as eliminative physicalists. All we can do is talk about the canvas and the chemical composition of the paint.
Is it possible to create a language that can express things only as would be appropriate in eliminative physicalism? Like in a world where you can't say, oh, that's the Mona Lisa, where you have to say, oh, that's, paint on a canvas. Like, could you create that language? Could you live in that society?
Well, I mean, I'm operating under an assumption here too, right? Mm-hmm. My assumption is that the paintings are really there. Mm-hmm. That the picture, the image of the young woman standing, well, that's not actually in the Louvre, it's in London. But the picture of the young woman standing behind the bar at the Folie Bergère is really there. The picture is there. I mean, it's impressionist, it's not Trolloy. No one's ever walked up to this painting and tried to order a beer or anything. Right? Everybody realizes it's painting, but it's a real painting. There is a real picture of a girl there. I'm assuming that. Now, you could adopt the position that the pictures aren't really there. The pictures are in your visual system. When they turn the lights off in the Louvre, all the art goes away. Or is there virtually, or dispositionally, as it were. Dispositionally being a kind of arm waving that philosophers use when they don't want to carry out the full consequences of the position that they're adopting.
What's the difference between emergence and supervenience?
Supervenience, well, emergent properties sort of swing free. Sort of swing free of their physical base, right? They operate then on nomological principles of their own that are not fixed by the capacities that gave rise to those particular properties.
Okay.
It's like I look at it. I look at a steak, and a dog looks at a steak, and dog's eyes. Well, my eyes are probably better than mine. A dog's eyesight is probably better than mine. So, you have the perceptual base. What I can do, and the dog can't. What you can do, I mean, it's just, I'm not bragging on myself here. All of you can do this too, right? You can wonder, is that steak like really meat? And what the dog says, looks like meat, smells like meat, tastes like meat, nourishes like meat. The difference is lost. Not that the dog doesn't care. The dog can't formulate the thought of whether it's really meat. We can. Well, where does that come from? I mean, that's deeply mysterious to me. That's the idea that we can wonder just about kinds, and the kinds are not fixed simply by their perceptual, experiential criteria. They're fixed by something else. We think there's something behind the kinds. The dog is unable to form that thought. We're these dogs are.
And follow-up, and supervenient properties are?
Well, one property supervenes on another when the supervening property and the subvenient property, the realizer property, the presence of the realizer property or the nature of the realizer property fixes the supervening property. You can't have a difference in the supervenient property without having a difference in the determining property. And so, what's that relation? It can be logical, it can be metaphysical, it can be merely causal or non-logical. All kinds of different supervenient relations. Yeah.
Press it again. What if we just deny modality? I'm not saying that's a good choice, but
well,
since
scientific laws by their nature must be such as to support counterfactuals, so much the worse for physicalism. You do that, yeah. I mean, if you are prepared, we have a name for people who do philosophy of science who deny natural necessities. They're called fictionalists, constructive empiricists. That's a non-insane view. Kia?
I think Sean was getting at something really interesting a minute ago. What about the view that physical properties are the only, or things only consist of physical properties, and the things that we attribute to Q properties, non-physical properties, are a result of language?
I think a better position would be that they are the result of cognition rather than language, because we want to say that you can have that Russian speakers and English speakers can share a conceptual scheme and probably do.
Right. So it's more like they're folk psychological concepts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the difficulty with the eliminative physicalist is the difficulty with, as always struck by, I think it was Arthur Pryor who said, you can't pay an argument off like a taxi. It's taking you as far as you want to go. And to ride eliminative physicalism all the way to the end of the line is not going to leave you in a very good place. It seems to me it's going to leave you in stark Parmenideanism. Right? Most of what you experience, most of what you think is illusory. I mean, okay. Why would anyone pay that price? I mean, is that? It seems to me that then physicalism becomes like skepticism in epistemology. Why should our claim to know have to be based on arguments that the skeptic would accept? Why is skepticism about knowledge the default position? What are his arguments? His arguments are going to be skeptical hypotheses. Skeptical hypotheses are by their very nature less plausible and less likely than the ordinary situation. I mean, skeptical hypothesis, yeah, you're all here, but this could all be a dream to me, right? I mean, skeptical hypotheses always have a lower epistemic value than the knowledge claim or the truth claim that they try to subvert. So then, you begin to wonder about the epistemic status of physicalism. And I think people are beginning to wonder about the epistemic status of physicalism for precisely that reason.
Well, it seems to me that we wouldn't accept that proposition because it's skeptical, because it's the skeptical conclusion, but because it's the closest we can get to reality. We know that, see McCormick's wrongology. We know that we're wrong about things all the time. We know that we have these folk psychological concepts. So if something that leads us to a skeptical conclusion is just what seems to be true.
Yeah, it seems to me the objection to McCormick's wrongology is consider the presuppositions about being wrong about something. Consist of the presuppositions about having false beliefs about colors.
Could you repeat that?
Consider the presuppositions of having false beliefs about colors. The presupposition about having false beliefs about colors is that you have some true ones, and they're about colors.
Okay, so that leads us to like inverted qualia stuff, right?